Hey, Michael, it's John. Looks like some different folks have given the usual advice and stuff of topping off your IRA or um, working with the 401k and stuff. Any case, I thought I'd offer something that we're finding that some different folks like yourself that they don't realize or don't consider stuff. No matter how set you are with your current job and stuff like that. Uh, And I don't know if you're familiar with the whole rich dad poor dad thing. Regardless of what you may think of, that something that a lot of folks don't realize is owning a business is very much a way to benefit from tax incentives and all that kind of stuff, and also like kind of besides the whole freedom and stuff like that. It really does like ultimately lead to financial independence and success that you just can't get with investing in stocks and mutual funds and all that. So to kind of make it a little bit more concrete, thought I'd share one of the businesses that we are currently working with. This is an engineering company, um, and yeah, like you may say, like okay, 600,000, who's got that and stuff. And the thing is, like, one of the things that people don't realize is that, like, you very much do have it. And here to kind of, again, get it a little bit more concrete, let's get into the numbers. So, first off, if you look at the cash flow, what they call seller's discretionary earnings and stuff of 243,000, that's how much you get from the business as the owner. And one of the things that like the rule of thumbs is that with that kind of cash flow, it's actually worth about 729,000 and stuff. That's just basically if you ever get to the point that you're looking to sell a business stuff, or kind of like, or you want to decide whether a business is really worth what they say it is and stuff, just look at the cash flow, multiply by about 3x, and that's roughly what the actual value is and stuff. In this case, we're actually selling it for a slight discount for various reasons and stuff. Sometimes the owner wants to get out sooner versus later. And it may seem like if the owner wants to leave, it's because it's not worth that much, or some kind of, something else is wrong and everything like that. Not necessarily. Different times people just simply need to move on. And it's just that thing, like kind of where maybe they're ready to retire. Maybe they've been having health problems, maybe family issues and stuff like that. All that aside, so the bottom line is that, as they say in real estate, one of the ways you make money is when you buy. And so buying a business for, better than its worth and stuff like that is a great way. So as I was saying, without having 600,000, kind of, um, what do you do and stuff? So in this case, one of the things that you learn about is that there's this thing called the SBA 7A. This is a way the SBA finances business sales since the Eisenhower era. It's been around forever, kind of essentially, and yet very few people know about it. Bottom line is that for 10% down, you can own a business, and there's nothing else that that has that kind of value and stuff. Even real estate and stuff. If you buy it for 10% down, you're not likely to have this kind of cash flow, right? I mean, let's face it. So all that aside, again, in this case, we kind of went with the value of the business and to kind of to go with if we're 10% down, it'd be 72,000. In reality, for this case and stuff like that, you could probably talk them down to 60,000 as a down payment. And again, you're saying well, I don't have 60,000 stuff. Well, guess what? If or you don't want to kind of risk 60,000 for only half of that. In the case of where you're putting down 5% down, whether it's 36,000 as the value of the business, or 30,000 as in the case of the business as its price and stuff like that, the SBA actually looks favorably on this because they feel that if the owner is willing to kind of come in half of the down payment with you, that shows their confidence in your ability to succeed, and overall just it sends a very strong signal to the lender that that both the seller is going to be in it for your success, and that you're basically You're going to have that much more, kind of like whether it's having setting aside money for working capital, so on and so forth. And anyways, um, so again, going back to that 243,000 cash flow and stuff like that. Here's the thing. Here's part of the magic of it all, is that the debt service, like at about 15%, is only about 109,000. That still leaves you a net income of 133,000 stuff. So even if say like you only spend about 90,000 or anything like that, um, you're netting about 175,000 after 4 years and stuff, and that, for all intents and purposes, the real beauty of it all is that this allows you to buy an even bigger business in your, like after 4 or 5 years after you're ready to kind of move on and stuff like that. Now you have it all as, again, as cash. You can buy a business worth 1.75 million, and like the cash flow that's expected is about 583,000 stuff. So again, this is like the kind of stuff that like nobody's going to tell you about, and it's one of the things that like I've been learning working with Chad Peterson and his team, stuff like that. That's who the broker is that's representing this business. And again, this is something that like you're not going to see in any investment book, other than Chad's book and stuff. So happy to answer any questions. Let me know if you have any stuff. But the bottom line is, this is the way to really grow things that like it seems like it's aggressive and stuff like that. It seems like kind of like, how can this be and everything, but this is like the math. This is like kind of showing you that this is an actual business that we're selling. There are actually businesses like this and stuff like that. And it's, again, this is a way of growing your wealth that nobody talks about. So thought I'd share this, and let me know if you have any questions.